going to start with our number 2 pencil. So I'm just going to put the other things aside. I'm just going to start out with this pencil. Start out with that horn so it's so dominant. And just say I want it that big. I want a nice sized horn. Almost touching this edge of your paper. The reason you do it this way with the side of your pencil is because there's 3 or 4 different reasons you do this. Number 1 is your elbow and your shoulder make better circles. And so just take your hand up off the paper and just draw with the side of your pencil. Drawing with the side of your pencil also keeps it on the surface. It doesn't grind it into the paper, so you can erase it. Everything we do with the pencil like this can easily be erased. You can take it right off and nobody will ever see it. If you use the tip, then you're going to grind it into the surface and you'll never erase it completely. And you draw faster, better lines this way. So there's his horn. It kind of comes down. His nose almost touches this other end. And you can even make a little line there and just say, well, that's where I want his nose. And then you have to go back to the circle there and say, well, is that horn too big? Is it too small? You know, what do I need to do? And so you can adjust it. It's all about getting your point of reference. You need that point of reference to be able to adjust your drawing to whatever it is. Here's his other horn. You're going to throw that up in there. There's an ear somewhere towards the top in there, and about right in there, there's an ear. You're going to throw that in as a little oval. And then look at the negative space behind his ear, where the horn is, and draw that negative space in. His poor little horn's been cut off there. I'm gonna give it back to him. I'm just gonna put that back there, or her. His jawline comes kind of down in there, maybe cuts through that tip, and then it comes over almost horizontal. Almost. There's kind of a little bump there, but you could just draw it horizontal to begin with, and then say, well, there's a little bump there, you know, I want to take it out there. There's a little bump where his little chin is. And then it kind of drops down a little bit too. Now you have reference to say, well, where's that eye go? If you go to the bottom of the ear, and if you look at it and you think, okay, that ear's in the right place. If it isn't, adjust it. Don't erase it, draw it in first. So if I drew my ear this big to begin with, and I'm like, oh, that's too big, I'll adjust it. Keep that point of reference going, and then you can go back and erase what's wrong. Keep that point of reference going. Without it, you never know. But from the bottom of that ear, if I come over and about where the tip of my horn is, I gave him that horn back. Typically that horn would be broken off somewhere around there. But I just gave him that little tip back. If I go straight up from that and over a little bit, somewhere in there is his eye. Now, if you put it over here or over here, you can look at it and go, well, it's not that close to the chin. It's not that far over. And you just kind of keep adjusting until it's about where it needs to be. This is a principle of art called proportioning. And in proportioning, you look at everything and you adjust it to say, well, you know, maybe this is a little bigger or a little smaller than I see it. You just keep adjusting. Just keep adjusting, keep adjusting. His horn was too round. It's a little more oval. Somebody said oval to begin with. I think you're right. A little more oval. So I'll just adjust it up there. This horn isn't quite that big. It's a little smaller, so I'll adjust that. I don't know any artist that gets things right, exactly right the first time. But the more you do it, the closer you'll get. Here's a little bump on his nose. I'm going to put that in. And then get rid of whatever's wrong. I have a tendency to draw very fast. You should push yourself to draw fast. You'll draw better. You can say, well, okay, his nose is not square like that. It actually has a little divot, kind of comes down in there. You can see part of his little jowls there. You know, how much of that do you see? Is it that much, or is it less, more? And again, just draw it with the side of your pencil. You'll draw faster, and you won't be grinding it into the surface. Don't worry about edges. You know, we have a tendency to want to draw a line around everything. The edges will take care of themselves. Don't draw an edge. For this, you don't need that edge. Just get in the shapes that you see and let the edges take care of themselves. So now's the time to adjust. Whatever needs to be adjusted, you've got your point of reference, and now you can say, well, it needs to be a little higher, a little lower, a little bigger, a little smaller. And when you're using your kneaded eraser, look how easy this erases. And so it's important that you stick with this, even if you're struggling. Okay? Anything new, if you've never done something before, it's hard, it's difficult. But just stick with it and it'll get easier. So once you've got your proportions about the way you want them, we're still drawing with the number 2 pencil, this HB pencil, on the side of the pencil, not on the tip. Now I got to pick out all the dark areas. So I can go through and say, well, okay, right around this ear, which kind of goes right around his horn, it's a little darker right there. And some of these little veins kind of come up into the horn. I can pull those up and just with the side of your pencil, try to follow the direction that the grooves in the horn go. You don't have to be exact, but just kind of say, well, it's kind of rounded, so my lines have to be round. As we get into value, we're going to learn some rules, I guess, or things to think about in value. And one of the rules, or the things to think about, is that the shadows follow the curve of your object. The rule states the shape of the shadows reveals the shape of the form. But basically what you're saying is anything that's dark, anything that has value to it, lightness and darkness, is going to be the shape of your object. So I'm just throwing in the shape of these shadows. I'm not concerned that it looks like fur. There's just a dark area. I'm just going to throw in that dark area and call it good. Inside his ear, here's a little dark area in there. And because I'm using the side of my pencil, I can erase this. So it's not, there's no pressure here. I think you get more pressure when you try to do edges because everything has to be perfect. So just side of your pencil, pick out anything that's dark. And look at the shape of the darkness. Sometimes it's kind of teardrop, sometimes it's square. Under the eye. See my eye is in the wrong spot. It needs to move over just a little bit. So I can go in and go, okay. Should be about more like down in there. So when you're putting in the shadows like this, sometimes it helps you to see your proportions and go, that's not in the right place. I need to move that over. I need to change it. Best to change it right now while it's easy to change. Because once we move into that 6B pencil and grind it into the surface, there's no going back. Even the shape of his head, I as I go through and I'm trying to put in these little shadows, I'm like, did it wrong. When you're doing fur, if you draw your pencil the direction that the fur goes, and that as you blend it and everything, direction the fur goes, it'll end up actually looking like fur. You don't have to draw each little fur. Same thing with hair, anything like that. You just kind of go the direction that the fur goes. You'll be good. So we went from drawing triangles and circles and squares to now it's starting to look like something. You're thinking to yourself, hey, you know what? This isn't so hard. So the more I draw, the more I see, the more I can just kind of blend in, make it right. Like I say, if something's not in the right place, now's the time to change it. Because you can erase all this stuff. So analyze your drawing. Look at the shape of the horn. Look at the negative space in between the ear and the horn there. That little C shape that's in there. Is that the right size? If it isn't, take your kneaded eraser. Well, draw it first, the right size, and then get rid of what's wrong. You're drawing with your elbow and your shoulder. The wrist does detail. It's the thing that details things out. So we'll use the wrist, but not right now. So your cotton swab, that's what you want to grab now. Now, I like to keep my cotton swabs for a while because you notice this one already is black on the end. This is from drawing this morning from 5th period. And it has graphite on it. If I need to draw something, I can go in with that and start immediately drawing with my cotton swab. Very light, soft, things you could draw with your cotton swab. But you need to season it first. So what you want to do is you want to pick up some of that graphite that's in there. So again, you go back into some of your dark areas and you just kind of start blending it with your cotton swab. And you can, if it's light, leave it out. But like right here where the little bumps are kind of light and dark, I can just go in there and just start blending that. Pick up the graphite on the edges of your drawing and move those over. And it becomes kind of like dry painting where you've already got graphite on there. You just manipulate it. You draw from it. And again, like your pencil, if you go in the direction that it flows, it'll end up looking better. The tip of the ear is really light, so that may be a space to leave out. When in doubt, leave it out. If you think, I don't see that edge or I don't see that thing, don't draw it. Just leave it out. So just use that cotton swab and then start blending it. Look at those median shadows, those little gray areas. Try to get some of those in. If it's light, leave it light. Cool thing about the cotton swab, number one, it's cheap, dirt cheap. These little cotton swabs are like, what, quarter of a penny a piece? And so you can use them and not feel bad if they get ratty and you throw them away. But they're soft. They keep your edges so soft. And that's one thing your pencil doesn't do. It doesn't give you a soft edge. And especially when you're doing fuzzy animals or hair or, something. You want it nice and soft. So your cotton swab's going to give you that nice soft edge. I think the key to anything, whether it's a sport, whether it's music or whatever, art, have fun with it. Shouldn't be painful. So hopefully he's starting to come into focus. He's starting to kind of look like a ram. Sometimes too, the further away from the emphasis area, so our emphasis area basically is the eye, the ear, the horn, maybe even part of the nose, the whole head thing. The further you get away, the less you have to draw. You can just keep it fuzzy and soft around here. But now we want to make it pop. We want it really dark. So again, we analyze it. Is there anything I need to change? You can even just take your kneaded eraser and touch something and it'll suck it up. And I mean, it's a great little tool. So I'm just taking this kneaded eraser and just cleaning up edges. If something is really light, I'm going to pull that out. But it isn't until we use our 6B that it really pops. And right there, I need to tell you what the difference is. Every pencil has a softness to it. On the end of your pencil, by your eraser, there'll be a number. And it'll say, like this one says 6B. This one, your number 2 pencil, it should say HB there. There's HB. But H is hard, B is soft. So the higher the number in the B scale, the softer the pencil, therefore the darker it is. The higher the number in the H scale, the harder it is, therefore the lighter it goes. So your HB and your 6B, the 6B is as dark as you can go. Your HB is kind of in the middle. If you want it lighter, just use less pressure, put less graphite on there, smear it a little bit. There's no reason to get those expensive drawing pencils. You can do awesome drawings with just these 2 pencils. But once you're pretty well done with the HB, you want to shift over to that 6B. You want that 6B to give yourself some authority, some power, some depth. And it's created by light and dark. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to switch up to this the same way. This is my detail. I can add pressure to it this way. I'm going to grind that graphite into the surface. So here goes. I'm just going to add some pressure to this and grind that graphite into the surface. And as I do, I'm really looking at the details. Here's my darker edges. And look what kind of authority that gives me. I'm really adding a little bit of pressure to that, but that's so dark and nice. As I go into the shadows in the fur, I'm using a feathered line. What you do is you drop your pencil in and give it a little fleck. But it's just this little feathered line. And it's a little fleck, and I just kind of do a little flip with my wrist. That's a feathered line. And you can add pressure, or you can keep it nice and light, whatever you feel like you need. But it's just going to give you that little feathered line. When I go back into smearing it, it'll end up looking kind of like fur. Let me zoom into the eye, just so you can see what I'm doing here. So when I go back in with my cotton swab, I can take some of that darkness that's around it and smear that out, smear it around there. The bottom part of the eye is not as light as the top part. And smear that around. There is a little highlight there, a little spot of light. I want to keep that in there. And if I go too far, I can use my kneaded eraser to pull it back out. And I'm just a little cotton swab. Here's some fur coming off of his eye. A little fur down in there, we'll blend that out. And again, the cotton swab is kind of cool because you can put pressure on it, make it go further, make it do more. Once you get it seasoned, it really can do some neat things. So I just blend that in. Here's some of that fur blended around. This is the part, the detail part, that makes people go, ooh, that looks nice. And then you can go back in with your kneaded eraser and go, oh, you know what? I took out too much of that. I want to add some light underneath. So you pinch your kneaded eraser down, you just touch it. And you pull out a little bit of light. Just touch it. So then that gives it that whole new dimension, that whole new feeling of dark and light. Sometimes you have to go back in and darken things because you just pulled out too much with the cotton swab or the kneaded eraser. The eye seems to be the very important focal point. You get the eye right, and it seems like everything else will fall into place. It'll just work. Last but not least, I can go in with my pencil and just do a couple of little lines that show the fur, and you're done. Voila. Go back and forth. This is that feathered line. Kind of drop it in and pull it out. What that does is it gives it a very soft tip, a little of your line. You know, it kind of breaks away. It gets soft and thin as it goes out. And that's what hair does. So it gives it a nice, thin, soft, fuzzy look. So I'm going to just kind of go from the eye out and I started with the eye, and I'm just going to keep going out as I go, that feathered line, and it's kind of a zigzag kind of a thing sometimes, but I can just get that feathered line in there. You can blend it. You can come back in with your kneaded eraser, like if there's some little hairs that are light, come back in with your kneaded eraser, pinch it down to a knife blade, and you just pull out just a couple little light areas, and that'll give it that fur look. I'm going to do the same thing with the horns, with everything. That's kind of how you do it. And look at how that eye just pops. It just makes that whole thing look better because it's darker. Darks and lights. Once you get away from the eye too, you can almost draw a little faster because there's no pressure on you anymore. That eye looks good. Everything else is just going to fall into place. It'll be just fine. Just like I drew the eye, I'm going to do all the other parts just like that. Pick out the darkest areas, blend them, put a little kneaded eraser to them, and you got it. But don't draw a line around things. Just leave it. Even the little wrinkles in his horns are just shapes of darkness. You just kind of pick those out and go, well, there's a little edge here. It's kind of a little smiley face. There's a little edge over here. You can even break it, leave it out, broken like that. Everybody makes that connection that it goes together. And just use little zigzaggy kinds of lines. Edges, I should say, because then they'll be soft. When you take your kneaded or your cotton swab back in there and you blend it like this, they'll end up soft edges. There are times when I want a lot of darkness in there and I don't want to spend a lot of time. So I'll go back to doing it this way and do it with the side of my pencil, like right under his jaw. I don't know what's under there, it's just dark. So So I'm just going to throw in that darkness just like that with the side of my pencil. And then when I smear it, I can go up into the fur. If there are some little furry areas, I can do the same thing with that. Notice though, I'm very close to the edge with my hand. That means I can press down on it. Sometimes I'll even put my finger on the top like that and press down because I need some pressure. So this is a very fast way to draw. There's that dark edge on the horn. I'm just using like little circular motions. I just want that little dark edge there. Because that horn is not smooth, I can get away with something like that. And that dark edge does not go all the way around. It's only a little portion of it, a little part of it. Just get that part of it and then move on. The little tip of his ear is lost. It's just gone. It's white. There's white in the background. I'm just going to let it go. Just leave it out. Everybody knows it's there. Don't deny your viewer the opportunity to see things their own way either. So that's why sometimes you just want to leave things out. Let your viewer imagine them to be in there. You know, there's a certain point you can't leave everything out, but some things you can. It's more interesting. Sometimes I'll get little comments like, "It looks like you're scribbling." Well, I am. This is called scribbling with purpose. You know, that's what you're doing. You're scribbling. How can you tell if you're having fun? Besides, it feels fun. Anybody know? You lose track of time because your right brain has no time concept. And when time flies and you think, "Oh my goodness, the hour just went by and it felt like 10 minutes." That means you're having fun. Your right brain's the fun side. We've got about 2 minutes of class left, 3 minutes maybe. Hopefully you had fun. Hopefully you learned something. Didn't get as far along as I wanted to, but that's okay. We can finish this too. Once you get it back, you'll get it back on Tuesday. I'll finish these up. I like signing it. See, a good place to sign it is down, not on the edge, but towards the corner. Don't sign it on the edge. So maybe like right down here somewhere. This is a good place for it. If I can't recognize your signature, please put your name on the back. I hope y'all have a lovely weekend. Hope you do something fun.